And we can just dance the night away until we get no more. Shake all the hurt away so you can feel and forget who you used to be. For just tonight, could you just dance the night away?
All right, and we are back. We are going to be reading and listening to r/Retailhell. We have about 3 more videos of Guild Wars 2, give or take, after these two that are going to end up having readovers on them since we lost audio on them. Specifically, we lost my mic audio on it, not the game audio. After this, I might upload the rest of Guild Wars 2 that don't have audio problems. I'm not sure if I'll read over them, though, or listen to the bot tell me what the story is about, because I don't know if it's liked. I haven't really kind of seen. It does make for a great game to put audio over because Guild Wars 2 is free and anyone can kind of start up the game outside of, expansions and stuff. But I'm not sure. I'm still kind of on the fence about it. I do enjoy making these ones because relatively they do have a lot of editing, and I do have to record it several times due to proper speaking and trying not to sputter as much. But once they're done, they're actually really easy to edit, and they're quite comfortable to edit, especially since I'm not the one having to reread them and stuff, because I just can't. I tried. Call me a quitter, as my fiance does. But we're going to get into it. Stop blabbering. All right. First one on the agenda is, I do not think non-managers should be obligated to stop stealing guests. All right. And here is the audio for it.
I do not think non-managers should be obligated to stop stealing guests. I personally have met a lot of managers who agree that customer service representatives should not stop stealing guests. At my job, there are 3 levels: general manager, assistant managers, and customer service representatives. I am a customer service representative and sometimes I see people steal. But I am not very confrontational and I make $4 less than the manager's woman shrugging dark skin tone. If I see someone walk out without paying, I tell the managers to check the cameras. But tonight, a girl walked out with earbuds and never paid. She came in 15 minutes before closing. I accidentally told her good night but then saw her with a box of earbuds walking away. My brain is too fried. BCS CSR workers are usually the main cashier, janitor, and stocker. I am not trying to brag because it's just a retail job. But I work on my lunch sometimes. Simply BC, I like to take out all the trash early and replace the toilet paper. Overflowed trash and poor stocked bathrooms bug me too much. ASMs mostly work in the back or covering the store, and they are usually backup cashiers. How do you feel about this philosophy?
Okay, as someone who has retail experience, about 8 years experience, I was working about 5 years at Walmart and about 3 years at Casey's. Both of them were good experiences for me. I ended up leaving Walmart because of a bad manager, but that doesn't speak volumes-wise of the entire corporation as a whole. And I also worked at Casey's, which I left because I was moving. So I had good experience with both of them. It does matter what team you end up on, to be fair. My team at both stores were a very passionate group, and they were very good with each other. And don't get me wrong, we had petty, stupid crap happen all the time. It's retail. People are petty. And you think that the customers are petty? No. Bosses and coworkers can take the cake, okay? Because they know where your lunch is in the back break room, okay? And they know where you go. Anyways, but overall, my experience as a worker was relatively good outside of the one manager that I had a problem with. But I wouldn't hold Walmart to that. But Walmart has a specific a policy, right, that says that as an employee, you can't accuse somebody of stealing. You're supposed to go tell a manager or asset protection. And on top of that, they would put these policies in place to say be sugary sweet to people when you think they're stealing so that they won't steal. Here's the thing. I always hated that policy because that's a stupid policy. Here's why. If someone's coming in to steal, they're going to steal. And you guilt tripping them may or may not change their mind, but you shouldn't be being sugary sweet to them just because they're stealing. Because what you end up doing is that customers who aren't stealing see that and think, oh, they're being sugary sweet with me because they think I'm a thief. Because they'll start thinking that. When reality is you should just be treating all your customers the same. If you think something's suspicious, call asset protection. And honestly, I think that Walmart and other retail stores shouldn't have just an asset protection things. We need mall cops. We need to have people who are retired cops who can see these things. They don't need to have a gun on them, because if someone's being violent, then you just call the real, like the I was gonna say real cops. That's really insulting. But like, you call the cops that actually are still on active duty, who are in the line of fire and stuff, right? So, but at least if you had a retired cop or a cop that has certificates, because there's some mall cops that have like have the what's the word I'm looking for? They have the credentials. There you go. They have the credentials to be a cop, and they either aren't a cop, or they are retired cops, right? Get a security officer who has credentials. And then, especially if you've got someone local, because then the local cops know, hey, it's Fred. You know Fred. And they're going to be able to know exactly who to believe, right? If Fred has a good rapport, they'll be like, okay, well, Fred's serious. He's been a cop for so long. He has this kind of information, blah, 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 right? It helps for having a connection. And it just makes it to where they'll take the serious more serious, and it has direct contact, because even like that situation, right? Even if he works for like Walmart specifically, I always thought that they needed one. They just need one security cop who just wanders around. And the presence of a cop in the store normally was a great deterrent, because another thing that I'd seen my store do is they would call the cops. They'd say, hey, can you guys come by on your lunch breaks and just wander the store? We'll comp you food. They comped the cops food. They bought them food, or told them that if they went and got food, they would give them in discounts or give them free sodas. I don't remember if the cops ever really accepted it, but it was offered. And it wasn't offered because they were trying to bribe the cops. They were trying to give the cops an excuse. Because I asked the boss one time about that. She goes, well, it's meant to give them an excuse to come in, and it also helps them to like hear it over the line, because we've had customers overhear them calling the cops and saying, hey, we have an intruder. So they have like a code word situation where they're like, hey, Teddy, can you come over and see me? I want to buy you a soda. And then they know, oh, Walmart wants us to come patrol. And sometimes they would accept it depending on the situation. And like, we never took it as bribery, because we're not trying to bribe them into doing anything that isn't within their law, or rules everywhere. And a lot of our bosses just said we wanted to thank them for coming in, even if all they did was walk and patrol around the store and walk out, right? Because our cops were very good about doing that. They'd come in, they'd walk in looking all casual, like, we're just gonna walk through Walmart, we're gonna have a good old day. And then but they still have their hands on their guns, they're still looking very professional. They look on guard, and then you'd see the thief put back all the crap they were trying to steal, because cops are here, right? Sometimes the cops being present is just enough of a deterrent to be like, no, put it back. Because if they're gonna steal something, then you know that they're being straight up, obvious. But I think it's stupid to have the employees be passive aggressive, because that's what it is. It's passive aggressive when you're overly sugary sweet with somebody when you assume that they're stealing. And then it makes it to where other customers have come up to you and they think that when you're being sugary sweet to them, that you are assuming that they're a theft. I've actually had this happen to me when I was an employee, because I was just nice to everybody. I was never really mean to anyone, really, except I think one person who tried to be very forceful when I was off the clock. I had my vest over my arm and I was walking out of the back room, and they were demanding things. And don't get me wrong, I did try to help them, but then they tried to get me, when I didn't get the answer they wanted, they then tried to say, oh, well, you need to make this right. You're the boss. I'm like, I'm not a boss. I'm a stalker. And I actually am off the clock, and I went back there and grabbed you an employee, because we were doing a shift change, like between the stalkers and stuff. So you're welcome. And then walked away. But as far as like with customers, if I thought you were stealing, I just wasn't nice to you. I wasn't mean. I was just very blunt. Is this all for you? Cool. Have a nice day. I would just ignore you as far as like being like not overly sugary with you. I would stare you down. I wouldn't be like staring at you in a way that's like starting something. I'd be like staring down the aisle or something. I would have casual conversation with the people, whether you're stealing or not. But I definitely would be watching. And if I saw something before you walked out the store, I would tell my manager, but I wouldn't chase your butt. Because at Walmart, you didn't have that power. Because if you accuse somebody of stealing and they prove, or they said that they didn't do it, or blah, 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 it was your butt. Casey's was a little bit more lenient with that, because it was a convenience store. So they kind of like, if you see someone stealing something at such close quarters, it's a little harder to like, not catch. But even my bosses didn't want me to put myself at risk. And people are crazy. That's another thing too. People are crazy. You don't want to be putting yourself out there and risk things happening, And I ain't going to get shot over a candy bar. You kidding me? Heck no. But also, like I said, it's not me, my little fat butt on the other side of the register smiling sweetly at you is not a deterrent. It's not. All right? But I've had customers yip at me and nip at me at Walmart because they thought me being overly sweet was me accusing them of theft. I had one guy get in my face yelling at me because I was being nice to him and trying to help him find some like pool stuff for his kids. And I said, oh, these are, these ones are, there's some like of these on sale right now because we were getting rid of some of them. They were on clearance because it was at the end of the season. Well, Walmart's season, And I was like, there's some of these on clearance. And he jumped on me thinking I thought he was poor. And I said, no, I wasn't thinking that at all. I was like, I just wanted to save you some money because the more money you could save on like pool noodles, the more you can spend on bigger things if you want to, or snacks or treats or whatever. And after several attempts at calming him down and getting him to understand that I wasn't trying to be mean, he just kind of sighs. He goes, sorry. I have 3 kids in the car. They are hot. They're cranky. They want to go swimming. I didn't pack their pool supplies, and now I have to pay for more. And then I thought you were accusing me of theft because he was lingering around the pool stuff. And the reason I walked over was because he was lingering. I didn't care that he was lingering. I just figured maybe he was looking for something particular, and it wasn't in that aisle. Because the way our pool stuff was set up was we had some of it in some islands, and some of it was in the hardware department. Like some of the pool maintenance stuff, like the fishing, like little nets for it. And then, like, some of our pool noodles and stuff was in that aisle. Like the action, I think it's called the action aisle, but it's basically just like a seasonal aisle that changes out, and it's meant to catch your eye, right? So I told him, I was like, no, I saw you over here standing and lingering, and I thought maybe you were looking for something specific. And I said, there's 2 different, like, places that things are normally at, and then some things are a little weirder. So I asked him what he was looking for. And then when we finally got to the conversation, I said, well, these are on clearance. I walked him on the other side and said, these are on clearance. And I was like, and I started pointing to all these pool toys. Most of these pool toys that are on clearance are things that aren't necessarily high end. They're not name brand, but they do serve the same purpose. And after I started talking to him, he realized that I wasn't trying to start something with him, accuse him of something. But I've had to talk down a lot of customers at Walmart because they thought I was accusing them of being thieves, or because I was hyper focused on them, they thought I was targeting them. And the reality was I was hyper focusing on them because I wanted to help them. Like, I genuinely wanted to help. I wanted to make their shopping experience nice and enjoyable and to just be helpful. This has nothing to do with Walmart's policy or anything. This is me as a person. I like to help people. I like to be useful. And it's always been something that I like doing. And in retail, it's the same way. This does have problems, though, with that, because I think policies like that are horrible. And I think that no one should have to be in charge of trying to approach people except managers or store managers or asset protection, because it's stupid. But like, there's things in Walmart that were irritating, right? They tell you not to do all these things. They tell you just to be overly nice, tell your manager, blah, blah, blah. I do those things. But if you didn't stop them when they walked out with big things, they can't get you in trouble for that contractually wise. They can't like fire you for it unless they think you're helping them, or it happens a lot, like it's too convenient for it kind of thing. Like, it's definitely like you're letting your buddies get away with stuff. But if it's not like that and it just happens every now and then, they say, oh, you can't be punished, accidents happen, blah, blah, blah. They do. There is actions that are taken. When they give your like yearly review, they don't give you a full report. They find that to nitpick at that. Whenever I had my reports, that was normally what they nitpicked at it. They'd be like, we want you to be more assertive. Assertive? You don't pay me enough to be assertive, and you don't pay me enough to be mouth off to customers. Because I asked them, I was like, do I get to tell customers not to steal stuff? Do I get to tell them, hey, put that back? Do I get to be snippy with them when I think that they're starting something? Do I get to be, do I get to say, hey, I saw you put that in your purse, put it back? No? Then I'm not doing it. I've even had that exact conversation with a boss. I'm like, I'm not doing that. If I don't get to to actually state my assumptions or my questions on it, I don't want to hear it, because I can't. If you ask me to sit here and be chicory nice to people who are stealing from us and to act like, oh yeah, this is all cool, I'm not doing that. That's stupid. That's not how that works. People who are coming in to steal are going to steal anyways. And if your sugary sweetness is trying to try and talk them down from it, you should be doing that anyways. And at that point, then you don't need to be targeting people. If you just had the overall policy of being nice to everybody or be as respectful as you can manage because it's retail and, you know, these people are your customers and things, then fine. But don't ask me to try and be fake with customers because of you think we're stealing. I'll be fake with them all day long if they're just jerks, okay? I can do that. I can be dealing with Karens all day long. Karens, Kevins, you name it. I can do it. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend this criminal in front of me. I'm not going to be nice to this criminal in front of me just because I think they're stealing stuff. I'm going to be nice to them just because. And like I said, because you never know. Sometimes I've seen people steal things that make sense, like food, medicine, stuff like that. And I've seen them steal stupid things too. But my point being is, it's not my job. You don't pay me enough to try and do that. I make minimum wage, sweet pea. So yeah, I always hate this. This is a big pet peeve for me. Anyways, I've talked about this too long. We're going to move on. All right, we are moving on to, I am this close to being fired for accidentally tossing a receipt. I've managed to escape being fired by the skin of my teeth. Okay. Interesting. I have suspicions here. How bad can this receipt situation be?
I am this close to being fired for accidentally tossing a receipt, but I've managed to escape being fired by the skin of my teeth. Ick, why I'm telling this on Reddit when I could be writing this somewhere private, but here I go. I had 2 trouble-free months from surviving my PIP and got called in a half hour early today at 11:30 in the morning BC of a rush or SMTH. I had a peaceful 45 minutes when an old white man had me ring up his stuff. So far, no trouble. Then his Filipino wife came in with the cabbage and I rung that up with her hubby's stuff. BC, I sometimes get confused with customers shopping in groups.
Yeah.
I chose the worst moment to space out and accidentally toss their receipt. And normally customers don't throw a fit over me tossing their receipts. BC, half the time they don't want it and a third of the time I run out of receipt paper. But this Filipino old lady got pissed. BC, I didn't apologize for what used to be a petty thing and decides to ask my name twice. So Filipino old lady's pissed at me. BC, I accidentally tossed the receipt and asks if I'm deaf and I retort that I'm slightly tired. I couldn't sass too hard. BC, I'm already at risk for being fired. Filipino old lady goes complain to my supervisors about me, couldn't hear everything, but my supervisors name dropped me and the customer complained about me and my service. Roughly around the same time, I gave the duplicate receipt to her hubby. Then my younger supervisor goes to me and tells me that I'ma be fired if I do that again, the receipt thing and the sass. As the old lady was leaving, I told my younger supervisor that I told her I didn't do or say anything to offend the customer and that I knew about her rubbing it in, that I'm this close to being fired. Then I spent the rest of my shift giving everyone else slightly better service. I also knew that the Filipino old lady was being a petty bitch, not that I can say anything about that or get fired. I also hate how I keep attracting these kinds of customers even without my borderline bad luck charm jacket. Also, maybe no, I shouldn't wear my borderline bad luck charm jacket during the day, at least it's not as bad during my night shifts. I'd quit if I could, but all I can do is bide my time for as long as I can and lead with as much sanity and decency as I can have.
Okay, I was about to say, okay, here's the thing. I've had this happen to me before, what I normally do. And, like, I don't think it's wrong of you to say, oh, I'm sleepy. What I think you could have done was, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm tired. I just got in. Let me get you a copy of that. My bad. You know, just be humble about it during those times. Because it is an accident. You didn't mean to do anything bad. You were tired. You may have had an attitude. This is the other thing, too. I've told some cashiers this, too. Because I used to work as a retail worker that stocked, right? I stocked overnight, and then I stocked cooler and frozen, and then they moved me to cashier on the daytime, right? The other two, I was a stocker and a cold and ice, the dairy and frozen stocker at nighttime. Nighttime is so much better, and customers are so much more understanding. There's more theft at night because it's more quiet and stuff when we used to be open 24/7. But the customers are more tired. So when you say, I'm tired, they're like, me too, it's midnight. My basement's flooded. I needed the pump to get the water out of my basement. They come in with their bunny slippers on. You know, they're just as wrecked as you are, right? And when I worked on day shift, though, it was a lot more harder to kind of gauge people. It was a lot more like personal stuff, socially burned out. It's hard, all right? Especially if you're on the front end. If you're on the front end and you do morning stuff, poor soul, bless your heart. Because it's a lot. It's so much a lot. It's so horrible. It's so much socializing. There's so much people you have to read, and then rush this habit, and then you can't read people. You have to just keep going and hold your head down. Anyways, it's possible that your body language might have came off as sassy, and she could have just had a stick up her butt. And like, with you being tired, you probably didn't notice. It happens. I've had people tell that. I've just told people that try to pretend that you're talking to your mother or your grandmother or someone you care about, or your cats, minus the baby talk. Please don't talk to customers like they're your cats. Like, oh, hey, little Boots, I love you. You know, that kind of thing. But always pretend that this person is someone that matters to you, right? And especially someone that you will still kind of care about even in your worst times, right? I always pretended I was talking to my sisters or my mom or my dad. You know, when I was talking to men, I talked to them like they were my dad. I'd be respectful. I'd be like, hello, sir. How are you? You know, that kind of thing. And then when I was talking to my mom, I'd always assume everyone was like my mom. Just be nice to them. If they started proving otherwise, that's on them. But as long as I just make sure that it wasn't on me. In this situation, I don't think you're a bad person. I think maybe this one had up her butt. But you could have just simply said, oh, this is how I would have just escalated it, because that's the thing. I think your boss saying that you're going to get fired for a receipt sounds stupid, beyond stupid. And I mean, maybe you have a history of being a bit sassier, but if you have a history of being sassier, retail's probably not your forte, or at least cashiering may not be your forte, you know? And that's okay. Some people just can't. It's hard. It's hard not to sass people and insult them and curse at them when they're being dumb or being insultive. And in this situation, this thing, okay, here's the thing. This is a big red flag to me. Your boss name dropped you and then told them how close you are to getting fired. All right. To me, I think you need out of this job too. Because here's the thing. When I worked at up front, right? And there was times where I got in trouble because I failed to do something right, didn't scan something, ticked off a customer, accused a customer of something. I had a customer one time who came up and she had all these clothes from clearance and she threw them onto the counter and it was nighttime. And I was scanning through them. And while I was scanning through them, she was ripping off the tags. Well, here's the thing. These are clearance items, right? So on these clearance items, she's ripping off these clearance stickers and she's handing them to me. And I said, ma'am, please don't do that. I have to be able to scan them myself. And you're ripping off the barcodes because some of these could be from different departments. Because here's the thing. I didn't say that part with the departments and stuff. But I said, some of these have different prices than what's posted. She goes, what do you mean? I'm like, well, this right here that I was holding was like a pair of socks or pants or something. I'm like, it says it's $2, but really it's marked down to 50 cents because it's went so far down. It's a kid's shorts or something. Because some of that clearance had been there for a while. And so they hadn't, the clearance, the clothing department hadn't been able to come in and fix some of the pricings. And it's been overly shopped by a lot of customers because it just is. And it had just been a lot that time. I don't think it had ever been that bad afterwards. So it was a lot of stuff. And we were changing out seasons from summer to winter. So that's why it was so bad. Anyways, so I told her, please don't rip the tags off because we have to scan the barcode. She goes, you have to scan the yellow tags, don't you? I'm like, no. They've changed that because the yellow tags, the clearance stickers are impractical and inefficient. And they've already went through the equipment and the machine itself, the online database, and fixed it all. I said, so all of them should scan correctly. I found some in there that weren't, the clearance stuff, which is probably just that customers found it, tried to either, it was like, oh, I like this shirt. Oh, wait, this was on clearance. I'll take this shirt better, and threw it into the batch. And then there were definitely people during the daytime that had taken clearance stickers and they had placed it on full price things and were walking out with full price items for like $2. So we were warned about this at the beginning of our shift. I said, please do not touch them. I can get them. She had like 2 shopping carts full of crap and all this stuff. I told her at one point, she was sitting there and I said, ma'am, please let me do it because it looks suspicious if you're touching on them. And I don't want people thinking, I don't want my bosses to think any suspicious things of you, which probably wasn't very nice on my part. But at this point, I didn't care because I wanted her to stop touching them. And I thought maybe if I informed her, because I have informed other customers before that if there's a certain way we have to do it on the belt, why? I don't hide the fact that there are certain activities that are considered suspicious, right? I told her that please leave it alone. I can get it. And it will come off as suspicious. It'll look like you're tampering with the prices. And there's a camera above me that will see that. And that kind of thing. She then flips on me saying, are you accusing me of theft? I'm saying, no, I'm just saying, you seem like an honest person to me, but that doesn't mean that people on the camera won't think that. And I don't want you to get in trouble. I want you to get these deals and all these stuff. And I was trying to be nice to her about it, but I was also trying to get her to stop because one of the things I had scanned wasn't the right thing anyways. I'd already found 2 or 3 things that weren't on sale. And then she tried to argue with me saying, well, they were in clearance and they have yellow tags. And I said, well, they don't scan that way because they're on here. And I was like, they probably just got thrown in there. And this woman has 2 or 3 kids with her. She's got like 2 shopping carts full. And we are oftentimes told to watch for people who have 2 shopping carts full because it gets suspicious. And sometimes they have to put a lot of it back because of the amount of stuff. One of the things that my store used to do was when you had 2 shopping carts, which I had for this woman too, you went and got an extra cart. There was 2 reasons for this. One, it was a courtesy. So if they bought the 2 shopping carts of stuff, it made it easier to just bag their stuff, put it in the next shopping cart for them, and then they'd be out the door pretty quickly. Because by the time you got one shopping cart emptied and put in the other one, you just used the first one they gave you, and they would have their bags and be ready to go. And if they couldn't buy all the stuff, say that they overspent or overestimated, or maybe they were trying to like pull the wool over your eyes, then you had a shopping cart for you to put all of the things they couldn't afford, which sometimes happens. Sometimes somebody up there, they think they have enough money for food stamps haven't came in, and then they have to put back half the cart. It happens. It's not necessarily a sign of you being criminal or a bad person. It just happens, right? But anyways, so this woman made that assumption about it and that kind of thing. And what ended up happening is my boss came over after she complained. She walked over to them and complained that I called her a theft. My boss dragged me over there and said and had a conversation with me and asked me what I'd said. And I told her what I said. And she looks at me and goes, okay, I want you to go back over there. Because we were out of earshot. She goes, I want you to go back over there. Because what ended up happening is they took me off the register and they had one of my other coworkers take over the register. She took me aside and says, what I want you to do is I want you to get back on that register. I want you to apologize and make it sound good. And I looked at her and I was about to say something. She put her hand and goes, you're not in the wrong. What you said wasn't inappropriate and you are not the one at fault. But this customer is very particular, clearly, and she just wants to be right. So we're going to tell her that you were wrong, that you were duly apologize, and that you're getting a warning for this, and you're getting in trouble for it. And then she looks at me and goes, you're not getting right up. You're not getting flagged. She goes, this woman's a witch. We know we're on daytime. She's a witch. And she's always like this. She goes, but she always does pay and doesn't steal anything. So that's why we're not going to try and just take your side about this. Because, she comes in. It's whatever. So she does. She goes over there. I get up there. And I get on the register. And then she chews me out. She gives me a fake chewing out. And she does tell me to do this kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. This is a write-up, blah, blah, blah. You're on your warning. And then my boss took over the register. And then, finished checking her out. She took her things, happy as can be, and walked out the door. And then when she came over, she walked over to me after the woman had walked around the corner and couldn't see us anymore, put her arm around me and hugged me and said, yeah. She goes, sometimes customers are like that and we have to play bad cop. She goes, but don't worry. She goes, if you were really in trouble, we would have taken you to the back room and you would have gone talking to. And she goes, but try to be a little bit more sensitive or try to word it very nicely. And I said, I didn't know what else to say. She goes, it happens sometimes. So it does happen. I understand. In this situation, maybe she was like the woman on my story where she just specifically wanted to start beef. But also I think it's stupid because most registers can reprint a receipt. Like, I could reprint anything. I could reprint gas receipts. So I found it stupid that she's so upset that you gave her the copy receipt. Unless they have like coupons on them or something. That's the only way I could see it being irritating, I think the woman overreacted. Even if you were being a lippy jerk to her, that's an overreaction. And I think the woman came in wanting violence, if that makes sense.
And we can just dance the night away.